Look, hey everybody, I want to talk to you about a cool project I've been working on with some friends. It's called Oasis. And what Oasis is it is basically an organization that is seeking to provide meaningful community that the church used to provide for people who are no longer religious. And this is important because according to most of the recent polls, that have been going on ever increasingly over time, the non-religious population is not only the fastest growing religious demographic in the United States, it is now the largest religious demographic. What does that mean? It means people who identify themselves as non-religious, when asked what is your religious preference, like, if you ever get one of those surveys where it says what religion do you belong to, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, and then there's like a box at the bottom that says none. For the first time about 5 years ago, for the first time in human history, those who identified as none exceeded every major religion, including Christianity and Catholicism. And it's the fastest growing demographic. It's rapidly expanding. So as a result, the world is moving away from these old religious systems. Like, if you think about a lot of your friends, most people don't go to church anymore. Most people don't have any actual theological positions about their religious beliefs. And so as a result, society in a lot of ways is freeing itself from the constraints of organized religion, which is a wonderful thing. But the problem is that one of the things religious organizations did for us as a species was it basically provided a framework, for better or for worse, by which people could be connected and live their lives in community with other people. So, and oftentimes it's not perfect. Religion is, and we all recognize that religion has propagated some of the most destructive forces on humanity that we know of. It's basically consumed by greed and malice and ill intent. And let's be honest, some of the most evil people are claim to be some of the most religious people, because it's a powerful tool for controlling masses. Basically, you can use if the stick and carrot doesn't work, you can use the threat of eternal hell or the eternal reward of heaven as motivation. Hey, as Hitchens used to say, hey, if you get away with it in this life, don't worry, God will get you in the next. So the thing is, religion has provided this framework for humanity for so long. Like, it's guided how we thought, guided what we think. It basically guides us in our decision making for what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And we've all experienced this to one degree or another. And we see this in the Pulse nightclub shootings, this horrible religious indoctrination that goes against even people's own personal convictions. The guy who shot at Pulse was apparently frequented that nightclub, and he had experienced such religious indoctrination that he even hated himself, to the point that he would go and kill all those people. We know this from the documentation, from the things we've learned about this man. And so religion has, for better or for worse, has at least had a framework to guide humans for a long time. For the last hundreds, thousands of years, potentially millions of years, depending on if earlier species that came before us, whether or not they had actual some type of religious motivation. I'm sure there was. We can see, I think elephants even somewhat mourn for the loss of other elephants, and they do have some kind of rituals. So I wouldn't be surprised if other species had some type of religious rituals. But religion is a framework that at least provides answers. Whether or not those answers are real or true, it doesn't really matter to people. What matters is that they provide those answers. But now humanity is entering a time where we are ever increasingly running away, escaping from the religious plantations that we were raised on, and we are escaping from the religious compounds that we were all born into, and our minds are being set free now with the internet and stuff like this. And now humanity is in this weird period where they are we're breaking free of these religious confines and structures that we built for ourselves. But at the same time, the problem with this is now as society, as individuals, I think a lot of people are looking for a path forward. People are looking for, like, hey, look, I know I'm not religious anymore, but what am I? What do we value? What should we value? What is there anything that's right and wrong? We're asking very big existential questions as a species right now. And this is why, the reason I say this is because this is why I'm interested in the Oasis project. Because right now our species is going through major hardware upgrades when it comes to how we live our lives. When we have all these technological advances, we're going to space, building Starlink's being built. We're not Tesla bots now, and I think a lot of people now are somewhat just kind of like lost, wandering in the woods. I mean, I always try to think of things like in terms of like how things must have been for species earlier on. I could imagine, like, the thing is, our species is not an isolationist species. We are a higher order apes, and what we know about almost practically all higher order apes and primates and mammals in general, mammals thrive in community. Our species seems to be designed to be in community with each other, in closed communities, and we've become so isolated. And this is only feeding into, this concept of this isolationism, this situation where we're now free from so many of these constraints we've had for so long. And a lot of this ties into religion, that we're essentially like a person. Most of us are like a person wandering through the woods by themselves, having lost their tribe. I mean, if you can get that as a picture illustration. And I feel like society is like that in many ways too, in between two phases. One of like this old ideological positions based on religious indoctrination, and this new world of technology, and this new world of like freedom and personal choice and information. And so like humanity is, I think, in a lot of ways trying to find a way through that and say, well, what are our values? How can we connect together? And so one of the things I like about Oasis is seeking to provide an opportunity for that conversation to happen. I like to think of it like Elon Musk is working on essentially all the hardware upgrades and modifications to humanity, and he's doing a really good job with people like Elon Musk who are working with him. And not just Elon Musk, but I'm just giving you an example. But they're working on the hardware side of things, the actual technical parts of the upgrades that are necessary for our species. Now with the Tesla bot and Neuralink and Starlink combined, it's very likely that we're going to achieve some level of eternal life through technology very soon. So what the technological upgrades are apparent. They are there. But I feel like that organizations like Oasis is working on the software upgrades for our species. I think we have to have some major software upgrades are going to have to happen in order for us to keep up with this. Hopefully that will happen in conjunction with technology, which will save us from destroying ourselves in the process. I think it's necessary. I think it's that level. They talk about the great filters that affect species and why we, with the Fermi paradox and why we don't see aliens. But it may be possible that in order to get through the next great filter, we have to do substantial software upgrades on our minds in order to work with the new hardware upgrades, if that makes sense. That might be what saves us from the next great filter, which is, at some point will come, if we can't figure out a way out of it. I think it's software upgrades. And I think for me, like, having a community of people around you that share similar values. And the ironic thing is we already have that. We are already surrounded by people who share similar values to us. But we have a hard time with the divisive nature of our religious systems to find that balance with each other. And the truth is, we all share something in common, which is our shared humanity. Our shared humanity is what we have, and so what we need as a species is we need to find a way to come together with shared values. Like, find ways to come together despite what we believe about different things, despite what we think about whether or not we believe there's a God, or who that God is, or whatever. In spite of, and if we have to find a way to come together beyond these things, if we're going to match up with the hardware upgrades that we're experiencing. And the fact is, there will be people who are going to embrace software modifications. They're breaking away from religion. They're trying to find new ways to connect together. But it is very hard in today's world. I mean, if you're not part of a church, where do you meet new people that share similar values with you? I mean, for me, like, the only place I've met new people were at bars and the night scene. And honestly, that wasn't the best experience for me. I went down some dark paths during that time. And, so I really miss the connections with people who I feel like are just trying to be better humans, like, every day. Not that the people at the bars aren't. It's not that's not the case. But a lot of times what happens, they say nothing really good happens after 12 o'clock outside the house. And it's kind of true. I mean, there's a lot of just crazy shit that happens at nights, when you're out and about in the nightlife and you're trying to meet new people. And I mean, you're not really out trying to make the world a better place. Let me just put it that way. You're not out doing service projects because everyone you hang out with is, hungover the next day after going out and partying all day. So, and when you look at statistically speaking, religious people are more generous. Religious people are better neighbors overall. This is facts, statistically speaking. You can actually look at all the research on that, and this is true across every religion, not just Christianity, by the way. If you're a Christian out there, or if you're a Muslim, this is true no matter what the religion is. Even Satanists are better neighbors than non-Satanists when it comes to their contributory nature to their communities and the greater society. So, what I say all that to say is that I think there's something there. There's something there that religion capitalized on for hundreds of thousands of years, and took credit for. Nowadays, if you want to get together and sing songs or hear music and talks, it's considered religious, right? Like, it's like if you want to have fellowship, which is people coming together, people see that as religious, right? Just naturally, but having community, having quote-unquote fellowship, having meaningful connection with other people and community with other people these are not religious concepts. These are human concepts. We are Homo sapiens. We are a social species. We are designed to pair bond with each other in small, closely knit communities. This is part of what makes us human. I think religion is very good at taking credit for things that it shouldn't take credit for. And I feel like this is that's a great example. It's like all these different things coming together, working together to achieve better things, to be good people, to do everything. These are not religious constructs. These are human constructs. And I think that the research shows that these are important human constructs to us. I mean, there's tons of data that shows that people who become isolated from their social groups, especially those religious types groups, experience increased depression, suicide, worse health outcomes. They die earlier, higher suicide rates because of the isolationism. So, but religion wants to take credit for all these things. But religion doesn't get to take credit for all those things. These are human things that they just staked hold of and said, oh, you can't have these activities. because we are the originators of them, but it's not true. And so I see that, like, society is trying to find a way of, hey, how can we achieve this sense of community? I think people are craving it. I think people are missing the community that religious institutions offered way more than they realize. And I think a lot of the depression that we're dealing with and a lot of this stuff has a lot to do with the social isolationism and not belonging to a tribe. I was just seeing some research on the importance of touch, how important it is to have physical touch, especially for children and infants and that kind of stuff. If you have any kids, the importance of that is actually tremendous on the growth and psychiatric development of humans. And it's got to be the same case too as we get older. Look at all the great apes and how they interact. Look at all this. We are biologically wired to exist in tribes. And I think that a lot of people in society in general is missing this. We're not missing the religious aspects of it. Don't hear me when I say that. We're not religious. We're not missing the religious doctrines and theology and all these kinds of crazy, all these kinds of crazy things. They're just like, many people don't miss those things. Even people who go to churches, there's a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of atheists still go to church because they miss that sense of community that they got when they were in the church. And if you've never experienced it, you really don't know what you're missing out on. If you never experienced meaningful, good community from your church, which I have, you don't know what you're missing out on. And I think society as a whole feels that way and is in that place where people don't realize how important this is to have a community of people who you share similar values with until they experience it. And for me, Oasis is providing a framework that I think is very good. Like, I think it's got the right mix of values. They're broad enough so that anyone is considered, anybody who's human, it should work for them. But it's very specific enough so that we're not including the things that we don't want, like hatred and bigotry and all these evil values, right? So, like, they have 5 core values, and their value statement, they're not beliefs, because Oasis is a secular organization. It's completely secular, meaning it's not anti-religion. It's not for religion. It's a secular organization. Meaning, just like when you go to any place, if you go to public schools are not anti-religion. They're just void of religion. And this is the same way Oasis. This is the same way organizations like Oasis are moving forward. Oasis is has great core values that allows for that to be the case. So there will be people who are religious who go to Oasis groups. So what? It has nothing to do with religion. One of the core values is people are more important than beliefs. Meaning, it doesn't matter what you believe about anything, because none of that really matters. We are humans. We have human things that we do and that we need to move forward. And it doesn't matter. We can actually hang out and build community despite our religious belief systems, or whatever the belief is. You can believe in crystals. You can believe whatever you want. It doesn't matter. So just like a school is not an atheist school, Oasis is not an atheist church or atheist organization. It's just an organization. It's just people who connect together on shared similar values, which the first one is people are more important than beliefs. We don't care. Nobody cares what you believe. Believe it or not. Nobody does. And then there are other ones like human hands solve human problems. So the idea human hands solve human problems. So it's like the idea that humans, that if we want something changed in the world, that we have to work together to make that change and make it better. Then there is reality is known through reason. It used to say reality is known through reason, not revelation. But once again, the whole values thing is about, like, people are more important than beliefs. We really don't care if you believe in revelation or whatever, which a lot of people do. That's your business. What we want to do is say, hey, we should all agree that reality is known through reason, that the best way to figure out what is real is to use our reasoning skills. Whether or not that leads you to a religious conviction or not, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, having sound reason is very important for anything that you do or say or think or believe. And then there's a couple other ones like be accepting and be accepted. This is important for us as we're moving forward as humanity. And you see this even in highly religious countries where they're being forced to face the fact that, you're gonna, that reality, that things are changing. And there's a couple of core values, but I like it. I like the idea about it because I feel like that this is, that to me, like, Oasis is a lot more than just what the programming. So many people, like, when they hear about Oasis, they're like, oh, you meet every Sunday. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't, that's not really my thing. That's fine. First of all, it doesn't matter if you want to go to something. It's not like nobody's saying there's a God or any kind of thing like that that's going to punish you. But what's cool is that, people who attend Oasis gatherings find that they just want to go back every week. The reason why is because they're getting opportunities to interact with other people who are on the same wavelength with them, as far as their values are concerned. And so people end up wanting to go back every week. And I think that's one of the things that the religious institutions and churches figured out, and once again laid claim to. Like, hey, we're the ones who meet once a week. You guys can't meet once a week because you guys don't have a God. Well, actually, no, that's not true. We actually can meet once a week if it's something that works. I mean, if we're meeting once a week, maybe there's something about that as a species. Maybe that's how that I think there's a lot of anthropological research to do in this area. But what if meeting together was just, like, on a regular basis, was part of how, like, our species and how we develop, like, on a regular basis, once every 7 days. Maybe it's just something, or as often as possible, or having tribal councils and doing these kinds of things. It may have an important part to play in our psyche. Maybe that's why people who go to Oasis gatherings go every week without religion. Like, there's no religion telling them to do it, but they still want to do it because it's meaningful to them. And I can tell you the times I've gone to Oasis gatherings, it's been very meaningful for me as a person. It's connected me on a level that I haven't been connected with other people ever since I left religion. And I'm being straight up honest with you about that. I've already made I've made more friends in the last 6 months through Oasis than I have probably made my entire life. And I'm turning 38 this year, and that's no lie. And so like I said, like, the church doesn't own Sundays. The church doesn't have the rights to tell us that only they can meet on Sundays because they have a God they worship. What? That's not even a thing. Like, and so I find that the religious aspects of being together is just silly. And I think there's something there. There's something there for, I heard it. It's funny. It actually came from a pastor. I used to follow Mark Driscoll before he had his big fallout in Mars Hill Church and all that other nonsense. Yeah, I was that kind of Christian. I was a Mark Driscoll, Mars Hill loving Christian when I was. But basically, what we one of the things he said, and this is one of the few times I can remember that I'm like, yeah, I actually kind of liked what he said. He was actually being asked about parenting. He was like, Mark, I guess somebody asked him a question, is what's more important with your kids? Is it quality time or quantity time? And his response, I thought, was really profound. And he said, it's both. And I like that answer because what he expounded on, he's like, it's both. Yes, it is quality, right? It's more important to have quality moments with your kids. But the thing is in order to, those quality moments don't just happen instantly. They only happen with lots of opportunity. So it's that constant, it's the quantity that brings out the quality moments, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's a lot with our species too. You know, if you're meeting together weekly for something that that's connective for people, well, if you're meeting together weekly, you're rubbing elbows with people you normally wouldn't. You're meeting new people, and these people are people who are there because they share similar values to you. And so that opportunity is what actually allows you to find the quantity of meetings every week, running into people. Hey, how's it going? Those little interactions build up, almost like it's like, you know, the ocean is made of individual drops of water. One drop after a time, it builds an ocean, a river, a stream. And I think that's the same way with our lives too, not just with our friendship circles, but just opportunities in general. Meeting together every week and having these interactions to me are like critical, because when you're having these interactions, now you're rubbing elbows with new people, you're meeting new interesting people, and people who share similar values with you, ideally. Now, and it may not be true. Maybe the people you meet don't have any shared values, but you at least have an introduction before you have an introduction. This is why I tell people life was so much easier when I was in religion, because when you were a part of a religious group, if you want to start a new business, it was super easy. If you want to get a new job, super easy. If you need to get a babysitter, super easy. If you wanted to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, super easy. It's way easier to do anything when you're part of a church. And this is one of the things that I think secular people, especially people who weren't raised in religion or who didn't have good experiences, it's something they just don't get. And I don't know if they ever will get it, to be honest with you, until they experience it. And when you experience it, when you actually are part of a tribe of people who share similar values, it has a profound effect on you. And that effect, I think, spreads into a community too. And Oasis provides that, because they're meeting every week. Yeah, we're not worshiping gods, we're not having that kind of stuff. We're having, we're listening to bands or musicians, and we're hearing interesting TED-style talks based on reason, or whatever. Like one of the coolest talks I ever heard was from a guy named Jesse. He did one, and it was a virtual Oasis, and he did a talk on working at home productivity. And I was like, dang, he pointed out 3 pieces of software he uses, or 3 things he does. One of the things was like, he actually gets dressed when he goes into the office, even though he's working at home. It gives him that sense of accomplishment. And then the other thing was, one of the other things he mentioned there was he talked about an app that he uses for basically sending himself messages through email called Brain Talks. And I remember hearing those 2 talks, and I was like, oh, it stuck in my head. I actually utilized both of those concepts for myself in my daily living, and it's actually made a huge improvement. But this is the kind of stuff. And religion wants to say, well, no, you can't do that. That's religious. That's art. No, it's not. Actually, it's not. And I think that the time is right for this kind of concept. I think groups like Oasis are the answer we've been looking for the software modifications that have to happen in our species. And I understand some people's resistance. I get it. Especially if you've experienced, like me, have experienced religious trauma, and all that other nonsense. And I get how the religion laying stake and claim to all these different concepts of connection. And I understand how those things can feel religious, because religion has taken credit for all of it. Religion takes credit for everything. The hospital down the road from my house is religiously funded. So they take credit for that. They take credit for all these things. And this brings me to the other point why I like Oasis, because I feel like atheism, secularism, and humanism, I feel like we have a major PR problem. And that PR problem is quite simply this: whether you like it or not, whether you like this fact or not, religion is seen, and this is a key word, seen, as the greatest source for good in the world today. Now, they're not. Religion doesn't do anything. It's the people that do all the work. But religion gets all the credit. It's religious organizations whose names are on these buildings. It's religious organizations who take credit for all these acts of quote-unquote kindness and missionary work in other countries. When what they're doing is they're going out and proselyting, but they get credit for feeding the hungry, quote-unquote. It's religion. And so what happens is people who aren't religious instinctively get a bad rap because we're not attributed to those good works, because we don't have any connection or organization that connects us. People who are not religious don't have organizations that connect us. So as a result, or we haven't in the past, as a result, we are like lone wolves traveling through the woods without a tribe. And I get it. I understand that many of us have been burned by religion. I wasted most of my life dedicated to religion. I think of all the things I sacrificed and all the things I gave up for my religious beliefs, and it makes me sad. The majority of my life was wasted for some religious belief system that I now believe to just be simply made up. And I get how that is frustrating, and how the knee-jerk reaction is to want to recoil into your own space and protect yourself in the future. But I think we do that to our own dismay or chagrin, maybe. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right word. But we do that to our own harm, because the isolationism is actually what kills us. We need to find a way to come together as people of all belief systems, across all stripes. We have to find a way for humanity to move forward together. And I kind of feel like Oasis might, or groups like Oasis might offer a path for that to happen. Honestly, I think Oasis is way more important than just getting together every week. I think that what it offers a framework for humanity. People are more important than beliefs. Human hands solve human problems. Meaning comes from making a difference. Reality is known through reason. It's a pretty good core values, pretty broad in scope, but it's also specific enough where it excludes people who don't believe people are better than the beliefs. It excludes people who don't believe reason, human hands solve human problems. It excludes people who don't accept others. So I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea, the concept. I think it's already been very good for me in my life, and I think that other people I've seen the opportunity is there, and maybe this is what humanity needs. I mean, is that weird to say that maybe this is what humanity is, what humanity is longing for? Something like this, a way that we can be connected together without all the religious division and hatred that comes from that. I don't know. I don't know if that is weird to say. I don't know if that's silly. I don't know if that's ridiculous. I mean, we are animals. We have animal instincts and biology that guides us, and we have needs as a species. There are things we need that make us healthy and happy, and I think community is one of those things. I think it's meaningful community based upon shared values. I think it might be central to human happiness. Whether or not you go to a gathering every week or whatever, having a way to connect with other people based on shared values, I think might be one of those things that are critical for us. It might be what we need to move forward as a species. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are in this video. Please leave them in the comments section below. Touch base with you later.